Welcome onto the stage the absolutely inspirational and multi-talented Miss Mozart Bio.
Hi, my name is Mozart, and some of you may have seen me talk over Skype at the NACE conference in 2015 when I was 14, or my TEDx talk at the RMS school that I did last December with Drew Buddy, the tech from Los Angeles. Now, thanks to Martin Bailey and Drew Buddy, I am live and in person, fresh from a 12-hour flight and 3-hour train ride from Los Angeles, California. I'm so impressed by all of the amazing EdTech keynote speakers here and with all of the passion and enthusiasm for education, and I'm just so grateful and honored to be here. Let me start by sharing our first YouTube video that went viral, much to our surprise, with almost 2 million views. I was 5, and we would take videos of me playing the violin wherever we went, and this is a short clip of our first 18 months. I'm 16, so I'm not a primary computing expert or EdTech genius, but I have had a very unique educational experience that I hope will be useful to some of you. As some of you may know, I grew up traveling around the world for the past 10 years to 48 countries on 5 continents, starting when I was 5. I've also been across the USA a few times, so I've seen much of my own country, and I think that really gives me a one-of-a-kind perspective. To give you some idea of some of the amazing educational opportunities I've had via my travel life, let me show you a few pictures. Okay. Experiencing the exotic Hindu festival Thaipusam in Malaysia. Me at a yummy pierogi festival in Krakow, Poland. Doing a Tahitian dance in French Polynesia. Doing flamenco in Spain. Learning archaeology in Pompeii, Ephesus, Troy, Mycenae, Delphi, and Palace of Knossos, and more, which was really amazing for a kid like me who had a passion for Greek myths and archaeology. Running along Bondi Beach in Australia with fans, swimming with dolphins in Portugal, and also the Florida Keys with marine biologists. Swimming with sharks in Bora Bora, doing a camel overnight trek deep in the Sahara at 6, riding a camel in Petra, Jordan at 10, and again at the Great Wall in China at 12, learning to surf in Hawaii, seeing a ballet in Sydney's Opera House, jamming on a didgeridoo with an Aboriginal native, or watching Shakespeare at the Globe in London, Broadway shows in New York City, celebrating Chinese New Year at colorful temples in Asia, participating in Semana Santa in Spain, eating reindeer meat in a traditional coda in Sweden, climbing the famous Tiger's Nest in Bhutan, seeing world-class operas in Verona in an ancient amphitheater, dissecting squid near the Golden Gate Bridge in California at a Johns Hopkins CTY science workshop, or doing a chromosome experiment by dissecting a fruit fly larva at the Bio Lab at the Perot Museum in Dallas, Texas, sailing the turquoise coast in Turkey, cruising the fjords of Norway, or feeling like time travel back to the Middle Ages walking through the Medina in Fez, Morocco, playing my violin on a Vienna stage, or playing guitar in Nashville, or having my acting debut in a Japanese film in Croatia with a famous Japanese actress, to name just a few of my adventures growing up global. There is no way I could have had any of these experiences if we didn't choose the travel life. And we did all of this on a very low budget of just $23 a day per person by living simply, owning little, traveling slowly, and living like locals. I was mostly home educated, which allowed me to go at my own pace and have lots of freedom. I also graduated high school early at 14 with honors and started college. I now have a 4.0 GPA and I go part-time because I already have a budding career in acting, singing, songwriting, and filmmaking. I'm fluent and literate as a native in Mandarin, Chinese, Spanish, and English, and I also play 5 instruments, which really allows me to communicate with the whole world. I didn't have a normal education per se. In fact, I took the SAT test when I was 13 super early and scored better than 97% of all 18 and 19-year-old high school seniors who normally take the test. This was very surprising to us because I'd never really taken that many tests or had any formal English schooling. We did dip into local schools in Spain and Asia to help me with literacy fluency in Spanish and Chinese, as well as immersion, but mostly we did what we called world schooling and followed my passions. We could not have done all of this without tech, but tech today is very different than it was when we first started out in 2005 and 6, when I was 6 and we started this journey. There were no smartphones or iPads or social media obsessions back then like there are today, but we traveled very light, always with 3 laptops, and mine was used primarily for my education. So I've been a pioneer in some sorts of the growing trend because thanks to tech, if you can work from home, you can work from Rome, and that can apply to education, and world schooling is spreading in many forms. For example, Tom Cruise's daughter Suri goes to an elite, expensive private world school in New York City with campuses all around the world. I've always been a passionate reader of books. My parents actually started reading to me nightly in both Spanish and English in the womb, so I'm thinking maybe that's where it started, I don't know. I've always lived in an environment surrounded by good books and have been going regularly to libraries and bookshops since I was a baby. On our travels, bookshops and libraries would always excite me just as much as the chocolate shops. And I've never really taken a class in English or grammar, but because of all the good books I've read, it's really filled in all the lessons I've needed. Good books have really been the cornerstone to my education, and most of them have been real books, and my mom is a real stickler for quality literature. But we also used tech to access our libraries back home while on the road, and that was a great help, especially when we were on the move. This is me accessing our library in California while in Spain. Skype has probably been the most important tool that we've used so far because it allowed us to keep in touch with family regularly. For example, my grandma and aunties could see me, they could see my latest drawing, meet my friends, hear me play music, witness my latest tooth falling out, and so many other things, so we never really felt that far away from them, even though we were on the other side of the world. I also did piano lessons via Skype and violin lessons, which were really good when we were on the move. I worked on Chinese via Skype and a whiteboard with my dean in Asia as we went around the world, and we even took classrooms of disadvantaged kids from New York City with us virtually around the world using tech. When I was 12, I started my first business teaching languages. I taught in both person to both adults and children, and I taught online using Skype with people from all over the world. I did some CTY classes with Johns Hopkins University, and that's actually how I first met Jubedi when I was 7. CTY stands for Center for Talented Youth, and I had to take tests at both 7 and 13 to qualify. I think my mom met Digital Maverick on Twitter, as she was an early adopter there because of our travel, and she had a passion for education, so met lots of innovative educators and people in education. Those CTY classes were always fantastic and done online, so used some sort of teaching software. Sometimes I would have to get up in the middle of the night to participate in a live class discussion with people from all over the world, but mostly I could do the work on my own time zone. It was hard at that time to get books in English in Spain, so Digital Maverick was a big help and a hero to us. I also took a fabulous advanced high school senior level music theory class via CTY when I was 12 and living in Asia with a PhD professor from the prestigious Peabody Conservatory. I could do one-on-one sessions with her on their website, as well as do sightseeing tests over Skype. When I was 10 and we traveled completely around the world, my parents got an iPod Touch, but they were so busy that I ended up using it mostly for myself, mostly in creative pursuits, like doing daily vlogs of our travel life, like this one, which is a short clip of a vlog I did when we were couch surfing in Bora Bora with a French veterinarian. And I'm sharing this because I think it's a really good kid's perspective of the travel life, and it shows how you can combine kids and travel and tech.
Mozart video. We are here in Bora Bora. In a very nice sort of apartment. The lady who owns this is a veterinarian, and she works downstairs in the vet. And today I got to hold little bitty kittens that were born about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Now I'm going to give you a tour of the house so you can see it for yourself. This is the great, and this is the great view. And the other day we went on a spectacular boat trip. Well, first, we missed the shuttle to get to the boat, so Daddy had to go and get the next shuttle. And first of all, the driver drove so fast that he scared Mommy out of her wits. But thankfully, we got there in time to get the teeny little boat that he drove to get to the big boat where they were snorkeling already. We saw manta rays and tropical fish. Well, not manta rays, stingrays actually, I should say. So then after that, we parked on a little island called a Motu, and the water there was so crystal clear that it was just, oh my God, it was like bliss. It was pure bliss.
I also used my iPod for so many things from the ages of 10 to 15, and I got my first flip phone at 10 because I had to take a long bus ride from our home in Penang, Malaysia to the local Chinese high school, so it was used mainly for emergencies. During those years, I used the iPod and the laptop for things like Khan Academy, Udacity, Scratch, TED Talks, and software to help with Chinese, just to name a few. Here I am doing a YouNow video for fans all around the world on my iPhone as we travel by car across the US. By the time I was 15, my iPod Touch was a bit dated, so one of my fans from out of the country sent me an iPhone 5, and that's what I use today. I do some of my college classes online, as well as watch YouTube tutorials, tune my guitar, ukulele, and violin with a tuner app. I use Ultimate Guitar for getting chords for piano and guitar, Sibelius for music notation, Connect for education, GarageBand, Transposer for transposing MP3s, and of course social media, which is very important for singers and actresses and musicians, so don't forget to follow me online at Music by Mozart. Having friends all around the world also makes tools like Skype and FaceTime absolutely essential. Traveling with a digital piano and violin was probably one of the most challenging aspects. The piano, of course, was the hardest because it was the least portable, but we kept a full-size digital piano in our camper van and bought a cheap one for Asia and rented sometimes, or just found places to practice on the road. We always had to use our creativity, flexibility, and ingenuity to make things work. I've used an ironing board as a stand for piano for practice. You can see it in the picture. Or bricks to make a stand, or even a stepladder with a pillow on it to make a piano stool, and they all worked. When I practiced piano daily in our small camper van during our 7 months of the year exploring Europe, my mom would have to go in the bed over the cab as there was only room for me, my dad, and the keyboard on the table. I took lessons with teachers on Skype, and sometimes in person if we stayed a while. We added the didgeridoo in Australia, guitar in Texas, and ukulele in California. Here's a peek into one of my online piano lessons by an innovative jazz teacher who was early to Skype.
Four segment, three segment, four segment, four segment, three segment, four segment, three segment, four segment, three segment.
Excellent. Let's try what major? Two minor.
First quarter was major, D major. Second quarter was minor, A minor. Third quarter was minor, B minor. Fourth quarter was major, C major. Fifth quarter was major, D major. Sixth quarter was minor, E minor. Seventh quarter was diminished, F sharp diminished.
One more time, please. These people up here, all down. That's it. Great.
One, two, and four, and one, and two, and four, one, and two, and four,
When we first started traveling in Europe, Wi-Fi was either non-existent or not free, so that was often a very big challenge. In fact, we had a little satellite to use in our camper at first, but that also proved to be difficult. Sometimes we'd use McDonald's, but sometimes there were challenges there too. More than once, I remember sitting outside on some steps of a hotel or station trying to get Wi-Fi to finish something important on our computers. But eventually, with lots of asking, we could find some Wi-Fi somewhere. Even in 2010, we had issues finding a good free travel office in Paris, but by crowdsourcing on social media, we eventually found one in the Paris Louvre Library. Friends in Barcelona, Spain helped us get local Wi-Fi during our long stays there, as it wasn't very good in the campground and expensive, and when you're a digital nomad, one needs a good free connection. There weren't the same things available then as there are today. I remember a fun geography game called Cetera that I used to play online when I was little, and I loved watching brain pop videos. But I also had limitations on my time online. All of my friends had Nintendo DS's, as that was the trend back then, but I only had one made out of cardboard and a broken balloon that I made myself when I was 6 and used my imagination. As much as we relied on tech, my parents always thought nature and real books were much more important. My parents were always very strict about time online, and it taught me that it was a tool to be used and to not let the tool use me. I think that's more important than ever today because I find a lot of kids are really addicted to tech in various ways. I love tech, and I think it's so important for today's digital natives, but I think we also have to stay aware and conscious of how it affects kids' brains and to do it in a smart way. We use mass transit all over the world, and when we first started out, we mostly saw people just reading books, newspapers, talking, or just thinking. Now, wherever you go, everybody is always on their smartphones. So how do we find the right balance of plugged in and unplugged, and how do we educate kids about that? Did you know that today there is a myopia epidemic worldwide? 60 years ago, 10 to 20% of the Chinese population was nearsighted. Today, up to 90% of all teenagers and young adults have myopia. Myopia has seen dramatic increases in Europe, Asia, and the United States. Nearly 1 in 5 teenagers in the UK are myopic, and myopia is more than twice as prevalent now among UK children than it was in the 1960s. Myopia increases the risk of serious disorders such as myopic macular degeneration, retinal detachment, glaucoma, and cataracts, and is the leading cause of visual impairment and blindness across many countries. The reduction in the age of onset of myopia that is happening right now is of great concern, since the earlier the onset, the more myopic the individual will become, and the greater the dangers. Living in an urban rather than a rural environment is associated with almost a tripling in the risk of myopia, and this pattern is seen among all ethnic groups. Some say our ravenous appetite for digital media is one of the reasons for this epidemic, as well as a lack of time outdoors. I didn't know these facts either, and always had better than perfect 20/20 vision, but it was a huge shock to me when I recently had to get special contacts for a commercial that I did from the same eye doctor that fitted Michael Jackson's contacts for Thriller. The eye test showed that I was slightly myopic, and that doesn't run in my family. So I think my time on the iPhone definitely contributed to this, and so many teens I know, both in Asia and California, who are all addicted to their phones, all wear glasses for myopia. I now monitor my time online much more closely. I always wear blue light blocking glasses when I'm on my phone or laptop, try to incorporate looking at a distance when I'm online for any length of time, and purposely spend more daily time outside in the sunshine. With digital natives, many starting now since babyhood, I think we really have to think of long-term pros and cons when it comes to tech and ways to educate kids from early on how to use the tools in the safest way. I grew up without television and much less screen time and more outdoor time than my peers, and I've witnessed firsthand some of the issues and how unaware most people are. Most of my friends don't know that by putting your phone up to your ear when you're talking or putting it on your body like in a pocket or a bra is so dangerous. And just by using the right type of earphones, one can reduce the risks greatly. Tristan Harris, who has a master's degree from Stanford in computer science and is a former product philosopher at Google, is concerned about the ethics of software development and its addictiveness, and says never before in history have decisions of a handful of designers, mostly men, white, living in San Francisco, aged 25 to 35, working at 3 companies, Google, Apple, and Facebook, had so much impact on how millions of people around the world spend their attention. We should feel an enormous responsibility to get this right. Emily Weinstein, a Harvard doctoral candidate, showed that they made the Snapstreak feature on Snapchat so addicting to some teenagers that before they go on vacation, they give their login information to their friends and beg them to snap for them so they don't lose their streaks. I know so many people that do this, and it's so sad to see tech companies work so hard to addict kids and adults. We really need to protect and educate kids about that. I've been going to a camp in a beautiful forested mountaintop in the summertime where we're not allowed phones at all for 5 days, and it's really shocking to see how stressful it is to so many teens. They seriously freak out and experience withdrawal symptoms of not being able to use their phone. I think these are issues that we must teach and prepare young people for. How to keep the advantages of tech without losing the disadvantages. Wait, no. How to keep the advantages of tech without the disadvantages. Jeremy Johnson, who has a master's degree in civil engineering and environmental engineering, did a great TED Talk on the dangers of Wi-Fi. He and Peter Sullivan, who is a Stanford computer science major, who has worked as a software designer for Excite, Silicon Graphics, and Netflix, both spent over 10 years using wireless technology with no consequences at all. They paid little mind to EMFs, which they once considered harmless and inevitable, but now have both become what medical doctors call electrically sensitive. Peter Sullivan said, "I thought that anybody that talked about the health effects of EMFs was a complete idiot. I thought that they were just not sciencey." But after they both got sick, they both became safe technology advocates. Dr. Martin Blank, who is a PhD from Columbia University in physical chemistry, and his second PhD from the University of Cambridge, has been studying health-related effects of electromagnetic fields for over 30 years. And he wrote a great book called Overpowered that gives a lot of useful information on how and why we should protect ourselves and how kids are more vulnerable and the effects accumulate over time. Some say we're participating in an unauthorized experiment, the largest biological experiment ever, according to Swedish neuro-oncologist Leif Salford. I don't have the answers, and maybe nobody does yet, but I am grateful that I was educated about tech and how to use it wisely. I feel so blessed that I was born in this generation that has so much amazing technology right at our fingertips, and I love all the amazing ways that it helps creativity and assists learning. I'm glad that tech is here to stay, and I think we'll find more and more ways to keep it as safe as possible. Perhaps the best thing that I learned by growing up global was how much we're all the same all around the world, no matter what color skin, what language, or what religion. So I'd like to end with a song that I wrote on this topic called Round the World, and I thank you all for listening.
Everywhere I know, under the sun, everybody wants to love someone. Everybody wants to feel like they belong, like they are strong. 'Cause we're all playing the same game. Nobody's perfectly displayed. No matter what the people say, we're all okay. We're all okay. 'Cause all around the world, we're all human all around the world. We'll get through it all around the world. We'll get through it. Doesn't really matter where you go. We're all the same, yeah, we're all the same. And it doesn't really matter what you know. We're all the same, yeah, we're all the same. 'Cause even through it all, we fly and then we fall. Doesn't ever really matter. We're all the same, yeah, we're all the same. Everyone I know has flaws and fears. Everybody wants someone to drive